We are going to be looking at some disturbing videos, strange and odd news stories, and as always, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. What is going on in Louisiana? Can anybody answer that for me? What is going on in Louisiana, more specifically, New Orleans? Because I have never heard so many big news stories before coming out of Louisiana, seemingly back to back all at one time, like we have heard ever since the start of 2025. With all these strange and disturbing news stories coming out of Louisiana, and like I said, more specifically, New Orleans, we keep hearing people say, avoid large gatherings, but what happens to be pretty interesting is that New Orleans this year will be hosting a very large gathering. They will be hosting this year's Super Bowl. I don't know. I don't tell people what to do, but I am going to say exercise common sense, read the room. I mean, just look how New Year's Day started in New Orleans. Most of us, we are still trying to wrap our heads around what took place on that day when it comes to the horrible incident that was caused by Shamsud Din Jabbar. We want to believe that everything we are being told about this news story is truthful and accurate, but there are things coming out about this news story that throws that out the window. What I can't get over, and I know I keep talking about this, and we should, is the fact that we had a reporter, a random reporter from the New York Post, Jeannie S. Tier in yoga pants, walks right into Shamsud's home with her camera crew and starts recording, videotaping all of the evidence that is perfectly laid out. There were chemicals, his Quran. There was paperwork left over by the police of what they confiscated from the home. There was no yellow tape up, there was no barricades, and one would think that given the fact this was a crime scene, the investigation was still going on, the search warrant of the home was still sealed, one would think that somebody, the authority, somebody, would tell the New York Post to take that video down because this is still evidence not released to the public yet. You would think YouTube would take that video down, given the fact that they delete a lot of videos, especially on this channel, but no, they wanted us to see this. What happens to be even crazier is the fact that we have the FBI, they go back to the home the very next day after the New York Post to collect the chemicals that the New York Post had found. This is the story we should really be pushing out there because this is pretty much proof that something is not right here, but I feel like this story is being overshadowed by what went down with Sean Ryan's podcast. Now they are saying that Shamsud wore meta glasses, making sure he recorded himself in front of a mirror to let us all know that it was him. Then with these meta glasses, he's bicycling through the French Quarter of New Orleans, videotaping and scouting the scene. They are also saying that he wore these meta glasses as he was conducting this horrible incident on Bourbon Street, but he did not activate the glasses to live stream his actions on that day. The glasses were on the person of Jabbar, following him being neutralized by the New Orleans Police Department, and they believe he was wearing them throughout the evening. This story really does not pass the smell test, especially when you include all of the connections with Matthew Livelsberger, the individual who caused the incident in Las Vegas. But again, just so many things do not add up. Like I said, there are multiple news stories coming out of New Orleans, and I originally thought that only one building had collapsed on December 31st in New Orleans, but apparently multiple buildings, multiple homes are collapsing. This building first collapsed on December 31st, just right before the incident on Bourbon Street.
Start recording.
The moment a building collapsed caught on dashcam video in New Orleans. Part of the building suddenly came crashing down on Magazine Street near the Lower Garden District last night. It was the former home of a guitar shop, but was vacant at the time. The collapse also downed some power lines, cutting electricity to much of the neighborhood. A few cars were crushed. Thankfully, no one was hurt. The city is taking steps to stabilize the building and investigate why it fell.
So days after this building collapse, the New Orleans Fire Department were dispatched to 2 reported partial building collapses, with the first building collapse happening at a 2-story commercial building that was being renovated. When the fire department arrived at the scene at 12:16 a.m., they discovered that a trash chute was being used by a contractor separated from the building, causing a portion of the second floor balcony attached to the railing to fall onto the sidewalk and the street. Then there was a home on the same day where the side of the home just tore off and fell on another home.
But first, we start with two separate buildings partially collapsing in the city. This happened just hours ago. Here's a map showing where the buildings collapsed. The one in the French Quarter was at Two Jacks, and the other was a house on Frenchman Street. Let's get straight to WDSU reporter Jasmine Franklin, who is outside the home on Frenchman Street. Jasmine, was anyone injured here?
Sella, no one was injured during this building collapse. However, residents say they were not inside of the home. There was a dog that was inside of this home. However, it was safely rescued. The roof of this home has caved in, and the inside side of the building is now exposed as the structure collapsed, leaving it with extensive damage. NOFD responded to the partial collapse around 1:15 this afternoon. The right side of the exterior wall has separated from the home and fallen onto another home right next door.
Now, on top of these building collapses, yesterday a large fire had broke out on top of the roof of Toro Infirmary Medical Office right next to Toro Hospital in New Orleans. This fire broke out at 3:30 p.m. There we go with the number 33. That's all we needed to see. And they say that at least 7 New Orleans Fire Department engines were on the scene. They said everybody had evacuated the building, but initial reports did state that police and people were trapped inside the building as this fire was raging on top of the roof. As of right now, even though everybody has been evacuated and the fire had been contained, they don't know how the fire was started or if anybody had been injured. Now look, I get it. We can definitely hear multiple bad stories at one time in one location, one city, one state. There is nothing strange about that. We can hear this on the news. But with everything else going on in Louisiana as of 2025, we have been hearing about bird flu for quite some time now. And out of all the states where there is a outbreak of bird flu, especially in California, where they declared a state of emergency, somebody has unfortunately passed away of bird flu for the very first time in the United States. Now, one would think that given the size of California and how many people are in California, and that they declared a state of emergency in California due to bird flu, somebody would pass away in California, but they actually passed away in Louisiana. They are saying, again, this is the very first time that somebody has ever passed away of bird flu here in the United States. This person, who is over the age of 65 and reportedly had underlying medical conditions, was hospitalized with the flu after exposure to a backyard flock of birds and to wild birds. From what I understand, a bunch of birds flew into this individual's backyard. They passed away, they all dropped. He goes out into his backyard and picks up the bodies, and this is where he contracts bird flu. Makes a lot of sense, right? Makes perfect sense. We hear something like this all of the time, where birds, they decide to drop in somebody's backyard, a bunch of birds, and a person has to pick up all the bodies. Well, we knew something was coming because if you take a look at the 2025 Economist magazine cover, a magazine cover that always happens to quote-unquote predict future events, you can see a jab right next to the Earth on the magazine cover. Look, I get it. People with underlying conditions, they are more susceptible to things like this. But we have been hearing about bird flu for quite some time now, for years, to the point that they have been impacting cows, dairy milk. So you mean to tell me the very first time in history that we have known about the bird flu, especially here in the United States for years now, to the point that bird flu was impacting cows and dairy milk, this is the very first time that an older person with medical conditions had been exposed to birds that had the bird flu, and they were able to contract the bird flu and pass away at the start of 2025 in Louisiana. What makes this story even worse is that the CDC reported in late December that a genetic analysis of the bird flu that infected the Louisiana patient found changes expected to enhance its ability to infect the upper airways of humans and help it spread more easily from person to person. Those changes were not seen in the birds that the person had been exposed to, officials said, indicating that they had developed in the person after they were infected. So what they are saying is that the bird flu has evolved into a much more powerful version in Louisiana, out of all places, to where it can now spread easier from human to human. CDC officials are continuing to investigate the case by looking at the bird flu in serial samples or blood tests taken from the patient over time that will give them more information about how the bird flu was evolving in the patient's body. Something like this should not really be shocking. We knew something like this was coming. Again, they even told us the plan on the 2025 Economist magazine cover, just like they did with the 2024 Economist magazine cover. Even Hollywood is getting us mentally prepared like they always do with the release of the movie 28 Years Later, which is a sequel to the movies 28 Days Later and 28 Months Later, where animals, I believe they were chimpanzees, were spreading a rage virus that was infecting humans and turning humans into basically zombies. So that Hollywood train never fails to arrive. But again, the point is, this is all going down in Louisiana. Then yesterday, on January 6th, a New Orleans district attorney had passed away, and news and media are saying that he ended himself Saturday night inside the district attorney's office. Now, according to New Orleans police, Ian Kirsting, 34, was found with a gun wound at around 9 p.m. in the 6100 block of South White Street. People do find it to be very interesting timing that this assistant district attorney happens to pass away while there's an investigation going on with Shamsud and what happened on New Year's Day. But I don't believe there's any connection there. I don't believe so anyway, because this district attorney, he specialized in assault cases in the sexual nature. He was tasked in the district attorney's office as a specialist in harassment cases and was assigned to the office's Assault Kit Initiative. The initiative worked in tandem with the New Orleans Police Department by investigating and prosecuting crimes while using recovered DNA evidence. There are a lot of big news stories and a lot of big players involved in a lot of these harassment cases, and the question happens to be, did Kirsting stumble upon something that was connected to somebody big? The rabbit hole does run really deep, and this is the end result. Yes, this could also be the result of depression, being under a lot of stress, things not going well in your life. Yes, I get that. But there are also cases that don't add up as well when we see something like this, like with the Boeing whistleblowers. We had one individual who was ready to testify against Boeing. He had all this information, all this evidence, and he ended himself inside of his truck right before the trial. And then we had another whistleblower who just randomly became sick to the point that he also passed away. Yes, something like this is not always suspicious, but sometimes it is, especially when we have individuals who are either working or ready to testify in big cases, and they just randomly end themselves. And a person like Kirsting, who's working with DNA that connects to crime scenes, who knows what he was working with as well? He could have been exposing something massive. But all of this has been going down in Louisiana, and it has not been even a whole week yet since 2025 has started. And again, this is the state, Louisiana, New Orleans, the city, that will be hosting one of the biggest events in the United States, the Super Bowl. But outside of what's currently going on in New Orleans, there are a lot of events taking place around the world at one time as well. A lot of very strange weather events. Take this video here from Moon Henry, who breaks down all of the events that happened just recently when it comes to the weather around the world.
Much of the world went to hell between yesterday and today. We had this massive earthquake in Nepal where 95 people have passed away so far. There's about 130 people that are injured just so far. And the thing is, they're reading 7.1 to 7.5. And this thing did some major damage. There's videos everywhere where you can see buildings broken, things just moving, huge buildings moving. We're about to go to Mecca in a minute, but don't forget that in Ethiopia, we've been having non-stop earthquakes, as well as in California. And of course, the warnings we also have about the undersea volcano over there on the west coast. And this is in Mecca from today. I'm about to show you some crazy ones from yesterday. A very prophetic place because, you know, the worship of the Black Cube. This again is also Mecca. You know, we've seen so many plague type deals in Mecca. Also Mecca. And, you know, I believe it was last year when we had that huge plague of locusts all over, you know, downtown Mecca where that big cube is. Wonder if there's a connection. Then we have California getting ready for massive fires because they're having hurricane force winds without hurricanes. And episode 2 of our live series starts in about 1 hour. Crazy stuff. Let me know below if I missed anything. See you there. We have a bunch of ridiculous aerial phenomenon as this snowstorm Cora moves in. So let's get into it. By the way, that weird image you saw at the beginning of the video, we're about to get into that too, and yes, it is real. So this right here behind me, this is actually 10 or 11 o'clock at night. You know it gets dark at 5:30 in those Midwestern states where core is moving, and it's ridiculously light outside.
I don't know what the going on. Well, I do know what's going on. 10:54 p.m. You can look outside. It's daytime.
That is pretty crazy. And right here we have Cora moving through, and it's going to dump 5, 6, 7, 8 inches of snow in Texas. Back to the aerial phenomenon in a minute. Don't worry, it's not only Texas, all the way on out. And I firmly believe that the blue is going to move way down because we've been seeing it over and over again. This wasn't supposed to happen. All the weather people said that the models were wrong and it would straighten out. Ohio's a mess, by the way. Craziest one. Yeah, I know it's hard to see. Here it is slowed down. I'm about to show you something bizarre inside of it, by the way. But notice how the light hits the ground. What? And then the blurs it leaves behind. Sprites or spiritual phenomenon. Please tell me you see what I see. This is the same thing that you just saw. Just in an image, add details, contrast, etc. Please tell me you see what I see. Let me know. Finally, what auroras in Finland? This is insane. Y'all ready for this snow? Keep looking in the sky.
But not just all these strange weather events at one time, people are still dealing with this very unusual fog. Check out this video from Conscious Juice. This lady in Africa says how the fog came over to Kenya and now she's ill, she's sick.
So you guys know that fog/mist that has been seen and smelled all over the country and also in the UK as well? Well, it's made its way over to Africa. Before I play this video, this lady said in the beginning of the new year, she started seeing these dark clouds appear, and then around lunchtime, noon, they would disappear, but they would also carry a specific smell with it. You know what people from the United States and the UK have been smelling as well, like it smells like fireworks. The other thing is she's saying how she got really sick from it, and then how she's coming across people that have like symptoms close to malaria and stuff. Like, listen to this gets crazy, y'all.
I've been saying about this fog that's all over the world. This is coast right now. Every morning there's these weird clouds. Look at this. And then it always clears by lunchtime, but look at it today. Could the global smoke be in Kenya? Because by the way, I got a really, really terrible flu at the beginning of the year. And I've kind of been recovering, and it was what guys have been saying across the world.
Y'all remember when I made this video and I showed y'all this huge cloud rolling in and the birds was flying all around it? And now this is happening. You know, I just find it weird that this fog/mist manifested itself before the polar vortex did. You know what I'm saying? And now look what's happening.
We have not stopped talking about orbs and drones as well. People have noticed an uptick of very bizarre drone sightings and other sightings in the skies. Not just that, people are also capturing very strange sounds when it comes to drones. Take this video here by the Kennedy Chronicles 21 on TikTok.
Okay, so there have been drones flying around our house for many nights since I don't even know when. It's been a while. I honestly stopped looking for them because they're there a lot. Anyways, I went to bed one night. My husband went to work, and in the middle of the night, we got a ring notification. It was like 1:30 a.m. that there was like movement outside of the house. So my husband went and looked to see what it was, and he couldn't see anything, but he heard something. Okay, you have to listen. Listen, okay? You'll hear it. Just listen. And I'm just saying, like, to me, that's alien talk. Like, I've seen all the movies. I know for sure that's what they sound like. And so I just want to know what they're saying and why they're trying to communicate to us on our Ring camera at 1:30 a.m. I'm very open to this. We can talk during the afternoon. I would rather do that. I'm tired at 1:30 a.m. But if that's the time that we have to do it, let's do it, because I really want to know what you're doing here. What do you guys need? So let me know what you guys think, because I think that maybe, just maybe, the aliens are ready to talk. What do you think?
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.